Hello. Welcome to another Wisdom Wednesday. I really need to change that name. It's just not going to come out. And I apologize. I'm a little bit late today. It's one of those days. My internet's not working at home, so I'm like trying to chat with the people to get it back up. Today's my husband's birthday, so we have some stuff planned this afternoon. Plus, we're having a party for him this weekend. So I just got a lot going on. But I wanted to pop in for another Wisdom Wednesday and talk about what I've been talking about on the email list and on the blog this week, which is about travel. So I get asked a lot. Hi, Devin. I get asked a lot about how my husband and I do our travel plans and how we figure out where we're going and what we're doing. And pretty much like we don't spend a lot of money, but we always like have really nice, fun vacations. And so I just wanted to pop on and do a couple of tips for you guys about how we plan our travel. So first and foremost, travel for us is super, super important. COVID kind of really messed us up because we had big plans to do a lot of things, but we decided before we got married, or actually after we got married, but before we had Stokely, that we wanted to do at least one international trip, one domestic trip, and one family trip a year. And we've kind of sort of stuck to that. But the domestic trip and the family trip is probably going to end up being the same trip. We'll see. But we legit have a bucket list for travel, and y'all know my planner, you know, I have to be organized. So the first thing that I suggest is get a bucket list. I actually have one available on my website. It's $5. It's super easy, and just make a wish list of all the places you want to go. Whether that is domestic or if it's a weekend trip or if it's, international, write it all down, because when we see things on paper and we put them someplace, it helps us achieve our goals. And that goes for anything, including traveling. And so if you want to travel someplace, write it down and then figure out what it costs to go there. Case in point, my husband and I want to go to the Maldives, and it is super expensive to go to the Maldives, like $10,000 expensive to go to the Maldives for a week. And you have to go for at least a week because it's far away. And so we put that goal on our bucket list probably about 2 or 3 years ago that we wanted to go to the Maldives. And then what we've been doing, I figured out the cost of flights. I figured out a rough estimate of cost of hotels. And then we just started saving for it. And by saving, I mean we save about $25 a week. So that's like a bucket list trip that isn't going to happen anytime soon. We have about half of our money saved up. Yeah. I don't know why, Devin. Like, I think there's definitely certain places that you can go to that, of course, when you see the amount that it costs to get there on paper, you're like, why would we spend $10,000 to go someplace? But I'm almost positive that the experience of going to a place like the Maldives is well worth the amount of money. Like, it's a beautiful place, and it's one of those places that is still kind of not as touristy because obviously a lot of people really can't afford to go there. But we literally we use an app called Capital with a QA, and you can kind of go to it. That's in my link as well. It's under my favorite things. But it's a savings app, and you can set it up in a way where it'll automatically save on rules that you set in place. So whether it's a payday rule, a certain amount every week, you can determine what those rules are. And so my husband and I literally set up a rule where we save $25 every week, and we each split it. So if it's $10,000, $5 for me, $5K for him, and we just have been saving. And like I said, we are about halfway there. But that's tip number one. No matter where you're planning to go, whether it's a summer trip or anything like that, I highly always encourage, first of all, that you pay for everything. Even if you put it on a credit card, that you have the money in cash to pay for it. And then number two, save up for it before you go. There's global warming will fuck up where we can go, but not in the foreseeable future. So most places you can go to, and you can save a couple of years if it takes to get there. So that's, first of all, what we do. We plan where we want to go. We have our bucket list. We look at our bucket list and what we want to do. Of course, when it comes to the family trips, for example, we're taking Stokely on his first trip in August next month, his first plane ride. And we wanted to pick a place that made sense, that wasn't too far away, that he could sit through in an airplane without him being uncomfortable, without us being like a nuisance to other parents. Even though Stokely will be almost 4, it's a lot for any kid to sit still. So we picked a place that was about an hour and a half away. And we're going to go to Chicago. And the reason why we picked Chicago is what comes to tip number 2. Before you go to any place, I highly recommend that you look at what there are to do in these places and really figure out what kind of traveler you are. My husband and I know that we like to sightsee. We are very big into really experiencing the culture of a place, especially if we go out of the country. We want to experience the culture. We don't want to go to the touristy spots. We want to go to the real like where people who live here go type places. And so I will look up, okay, what museums can we go to? Where can we stay that's not in like a touristy area, but is still centrally located? What is there to do for us? And so that's what I recommend for number 2. Look at where you want to go and then find things for you to do. But don't overburden your day. Yes, like this haunted house thing that I'm trying to get Devin to go to. Don't plan too much for one day though, because I think we tend to think when we go someplace we're miraculously going to have all this energy because we're on vacation and we're going to want to do all the things. And sometimes that's not feasible. There's 2 ways that you can get around that. You either go again, so plan to go back to wherever you're going so that way you can take your time and do things, or stay longer, which of course costs more money. So don't try to cram too much into any trip that you're taking, because you'll end up being exhausted. It'll feel like your itinerary is too full, that you have too much to do. When we went to Italy, for example, there's a lot to do in Italy, specifically Rome. We went to Rome, and there are a lot of museums, a lot of places that you can go to, and we walked everywhere. We were clocking like 20,000 steps in Italy. It was crazy how much we were walking, but we knew the big things that we wanted to do. And by we, I really mean me, because my husband just kind of goes along with whatever I plan. So I knew like we were going to spend a day going to the Colosseum because we were going to be standing in line and then walking there. And I knew we were going to spend a whole morning or a whole afternoon going to the Vatican because that's the type of places it is. And if you're into those cultural sightseeing type things, you don't want to try to plan too much in that day because you'll end up feeling rushed and that you really didn't get to see everything that you wanted to see while you were at this place. So yeah, you might miss some things, but try to pick your top 3-4 must do things for your trip and make sure you schedule that into your itinerary. For example, our Chicago trip with Stokely, because we wanted to take him somewhere close. We knew that we wanted to take him to a place that was more family friendly. We picked Chicago because it's only about a 2-hour flight from us. And Chicago is a very family friendly city. They have a bunch of museums. They have a bunch of open spaces where we can go to parks. Hopefully at the end of August, it's not too hot still, but not quite cold yet, because there's really only a small window of where you can go or when you can go to Chicago if you don't like the cold. And so that's why we picked Chicago, because we knew that there would be a lot of things for us to do there with him. We're only going for 3 days. And so I know that like we can go to a children's museum. I know we can go to Hyde Park. They have a history museum like they do here in DC, and he loves dinosaurs. So I know that we can do that. And so try to find things that you can plan your trip around, because that also helps with planning where you're going to fly into and then where you want to stay. I'm a big fan of signing up for Hilton or Marriott rewards because it does come in handy when you want to try to book any hotel room for cheaper. Rewards points definitely get you cheaper rates. And then sometimes they also get you added benefits like earlier check-ins, late checkouts, an extra night free. It just depends. I'm a Hilton reward member, so I'll always stay at a Hilton if I can. Or if you want a more lived-in experience, if you're going to be at a place for a longer period of time, Look at Airbnbs, like look at Verbo. I think that's the other one that's called, or home away from home, places where you can rent out entire houses. Sometimes those can be comparable in pricing to a hotel. Sometimes they can be cheaper. But try to pick a place that's centrally located to where you want to stay, what all of the tourist things that you're doing. So that way you don't have to spend a lot on transportation. You know how you're getting around. If there's public transportation, you know that you're close to stops and things like that. So be cognizant when you're planning your trip. I always say too, whenever you're planning a summer travel trip, or any trip for that matter, that when it comes to again, your itinerary and all of the things that you want to do, you try to give yourself a free day. And that can be a day where you don't have anything scheduled, because it allows you the opportunity to go back to a place that you may have really liked and you didn't get to spend enough time with. It allows you time to maybe go just on a walking tour of the city or the place where you are and experience, a restaurant that you passed that was interesting to you. Or maybe you saw something that was local and that's not on any sort of, touristy website, and you would never know about it. But you saw it during, your travel there. So now you have this free day where you can do that. Try to, plan a free day for you to relax. The whole point of any vacation is to relax. It's to unwind. It's to get away. Yes, you want to see things. Yes, you want to have fun. Yes, you want to experience things. But you're in a new place and you want to be able to experience that place. So make sure you're giving yourself a free day to actually wind down, calm down. Normally we do it like the last day that we're there. And you can explore what it's like to live in the city versus actually being a tourist there. And I think I'm up to number 3 or 4, but whatever tip number this is, when it comes to paying for travel. So again, we are really big into financing with cash any of our trips. However, I say that with a caveat. We have a Chase Sapphire Rewards card that we pretty much charge everything on. We pay it off at the end of every month. And we do that because Chase gives you travel reward points. And what that allows us to do is to plan our overseas trips, especially pretty much for nothing when it comes to flights. So if you can be a responsible spender when it comes to credit card spending, and you can find yourself a airline card or a credit card that gives you really good benefits when it comes to travel, and you love to travel, I suggest doing it. But you have to be responsible, because we don't do debt in this house. So you have to be responsible when it comes to that. So for example, we have about 70,000 points on our Chase card right now. We're planning a trip to Thailand and or someplace else because of COVID things this year in November. We know that our flights are pretty much going to be fleet free because of the number of points that we have. And Chase Travel Rewards have a bunch of airlines that you can go through. And it's literally like, if you have enough points, for example, I think the flights right now to Thailand are like $700 per person. We have enough points where it'll cover both of us round trip. And so it's literally cutting the cost of our trip in half, because we don't have to pay for flights now. And so that's one way that we really get to travel to these places without spending a lot of money. We always budget for our trips. We know that if we're going to take 2 trips or 3 trips, that we have that money in cash. We put it on the credit card because they also give you double rewards points if it's like a hotel or airplane ticket. So we charge it on the credit card, but then we pay it off, and then we use those points to book the bigger and more expensive trips. And so that's why, like, if it's something that you can be responsible about, I highly, highly recommend it. I also encourage you to, like I said, when it comes to staying outside of touristy areas, I really highly recommend that, because it will be less expensive if you are a little bit further out. If you're in an area that is not touristy, but that has centralized either transportation, or that you can take a taxi, those are going to cost you a little bit less than staying in, of course, where all of the touristy stuff is. And you don't really want to be where the touristy stuff is anyway, because it's going to be expensive. Like, all of that stuff is just made for people to spend money. So you don't want to stay there. I also encourage you to look at boutique hotels. My husband and I, when we went on our honeymoon, we happened to stay in this hotel that was a converted a convent house, El Convento, in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And they had a book on the table, and it was called I think it was called like Small Resorts of the World or something like that. I have to look it up. But essentially, it was these 5 and 4-star hotels that are boutique hotels that have literally, I think, a max capacity of maybe 100 rooms. So they're smaller hotels, and they have like individual style rooms where every room is different, but they're like amazing at their service, and they have them all over the world. We've stayed both in Greece and Italy and Puerto Rico in this type of hotel. It was a little bit more expensive to stay at these places, but the service was phenomenal. The locations were amazing because they were like in the heart of where we wanted to be, but it wasn't like your classic Hilton hotel that's like right down the street from whatever you want, whatever tourist attraction is right there. It was a little bit off the beaten path. The one that we stayed in Greece was a walk. It was probably about a 10-minute walk away from the Parthenon. I don't think it's called the Parthenon. I feel like that's someplace else, but y'all know what I'm talking about. The big structures, that looks kind of like every Greek structure you ever thought of. But it was within walking distance from that, but it was also near a local market that locals went to like go shopping. It was near like cafes where we saw like Greek people sitting, drinking espresso, watching soccer games. Like it was in a local part of town. And so we paid slightly more than we would have, but it was a unique hotel experience that gave us that real city experience where we didn't really feel like tourists. And we did the same thing when we were in Italy. We stayed near the Spanish Steps, which is a huge tourist attraction, but the hotel, like you could literally walk past this hotel without even realizing that it was a hotel, because it was this small little thing. I think they maybe had like 10 or 8 rooms, something like that. It was gorgeous. It was centrally located, and it was close to like all these restaurants that we could walk to. And the benefit about staying at places like that is the people who work there tend to be, I don't want to say more local, because of course everybody who works at hotels there are local, but they really know the area as well, and they can tell you places to go or places to eat or how to get places that isn't in the traditional touristy manner. And so you really get to experience the place where you're going without feeling like you're a tourist. And so that's kind of like the quick tips that I just wanted to give you guys. Get a bucket list. Again, link in the bio. It's $5 to download your bucket list. Write down where you want to go. And as always, y'all know me, as always, make a plan for how you're going to make it happen. Figure out how much it costs to get there. Rough costs are fine. Figure out how much it's going to cost to get there. Figure out your time frame for when you want to go, and what does that mean for saving? How do you save to get there? If you know it costs $100 and you need to spend, save $25 every week until you get there, plan it out so that you know that come 2 years from now, you're going to be going to the Maldives because you saved up the money. You won't be in debt about it, and it'll feel like a real vacation because you don't have to worry about that bill when you come back with everything that you've done. So make sure that you're planning for the cost of the trip. Research the places that you're going to go. Make sure there's things that you want to do there. You don't have to go to a place just because everybody else goes there and it's like a popping spot if you don't really like those places. My husband and I probably will not go to Miami together because we're not really into clubs and we don't really like, the bar scene and stuff anymore. So, we probably won't go to Miami. We've been to Vegas one time. And everybody loves Vegas, but we went and we didn't really have a lot of fun there. And so we probably won't be going back to Vegas. So figure out what it is that you like to do and make sure that the places that you're going have those things that you want to do there. So that way you actually enjoy your trip. Try to stay off the beaten path so that way you can experience more of the local culture. And then when it comes to spending money, that's the other big one when it comes to budgeting. Make sure that you take enough, right? Like if you're going overseas, take at least $1,000, if not more. Yes, $100 is the best number that I came off the top of my head, Q, and that's because I can't do math, and so I knew I could split that one up easily. $1,000, you save $25 a month. Is that a better example for you? But anyway, make sure that you are taking enough spending money for wherever you're going. Incidentals, things cost money, and so you want to make sure that you're budgeting for eating out. You want to make sure that you're budgeting for any gifts that you're going to buy, for any of the attractions that you're going to buy. That goes into the planning and when you're researching where you want to go. Literally write down how much attractions cost. What does the average meal cost when you go there? We looked this all up because for us going to Thailand, it was like, okay, the average cost of a day of meals in Thailand is about $16. So if we know we're going to be there for 7 days, that's this much money. If we know we want to do X, Y, and Z as far as activities, it's going to be this much money. And so plan for those, and then probably bring about 10 to 15% more than what you budgeted for, so that we have wiggle room. Every place in the country around the world has money or has ATMs that you can go to. They're going to cost you. But make sure that if you need to take out money, that you have, they do have ATMs available. You can also, if you use a credit card, you can use them all over the world. Just make sure that before you leave for your trip, that you let your credit card company know that you are going to be somewhere else, so that way they won't stop your credit card when you need to pay for something, because they'll probably see it as fraudulent if you're not from that area. So that's what advice I wanted to give. If you want to download the bucket list, it's in the link in my bio. If you want to look into something like Capital, which is what my husband and I uses to save money, it's QAPITAL. That's also the link in my bio under my favorite things. We love it. We've been using it for years. It's literally how we budget for Christmas, birthdays, our vacations, anything we want to do in the house. It's how we do a lot of our budgeting. So that's the Capital app. If you want to chase Sapphire card, DM me, because I can send you a link, and I think you get bonus points and I get bonus points as well. But only if you're going to be a responsible spender, because we do not do debt at all. But other than that, let me know where you're traveling to. I have 3 more trips planned this year. So family and I will be in Chicago in August. September, Devin and I are going to Savannah. And then come November, we'll be somewhere in the world. We'll either be in Thailand or Portugal, possibly Colombia. We haven't narrowed it down yet, but we'll be somewhere. But let me know where you want to travel to, if these planning tips helped. And then make sure that you're here next Wednesday at a TBD time for our next Wisdom Wednesdays. Thanks, guys.